Well, good morning, everybody. I'm trying to override you all with Spotlight View. I'm not sure how it's doing here. I got a little group of experiments going. This is Woodturners Coffee Hour number 109 on June 30th, 2022 at 10 a.m. And I'm going to open today, since this was always begun in the spirit of let's figure out Zoom and learn how to use it to our advantage. I'm going to show you the current Zoom experiment, which comes to light because Mid-Atlantic Association agreed that we could try to produce an all Zoom enhancement to the fall symposium minus demos, and so in order to test that out, I've made a contraption here, a prototype contraption that I'm going to take to the Lancaster picnic on Tuesday, which will be a Zoom event as well as a live event. So those of you who don't live in Lancaster and you'd like to spend an hour with us Tuesday night at the Frisbee toss, we will be on Zoom, and I will be sending the link out to that later today. And what I'm going to be using there to broadcast from Zoom is this contraption, which well, let me see, I'll show you first what happens here. I'm looking at you through my phone. When I come over here and I walk up to the cart, see where I show up here on this other screen. And if that's full screen, you see yourself full screen. Now let me show you what that actually looks like if I can reverse this camera. Okay, so that's a monitor on top of a box next to a turning with a hat on it, and a camera and another camera. On top of a transport chair, a wheelchair that doesn't have wheels. It's just a transport chair.
We can hardly hear you, John.
You can hardly hear me. Well, I have to fix that. Thank you for the advisory. I'm going to change microphones. Oh, I see why too. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Can you see what I'm showing you now?
Not very well.
Yep. We can see it. Hey, do you have another one spotlighted for a reason? There's two screens spotlighted.
Yeah, the second one spotlighted is the camera I walk into when I walk around as I was a customer coming up to myself at an event where I was trying to make this work.
But the audio's not good there.
Now, and I would make that full screen at the actual event. So when you walk up to my kiosk to wonder what this contraption is, you're going to see yourself full screen right here on this 17-inch monitor. And I'm going to try and engage you in conversation so that the people in the room at the picnic can talk to the people who attend on Zoom, which I hope is at least some of you all, which will be Tuesday night at 7. So that's my report on all that. Any comments, questions, queries? I'm going to get out of here and get this cleaned up so I'm back to our normal meeting mode here. So I'm going to leave.
The audio was definitely not good on the alternate screen on this one.
Yeah, I'm now looking at gallery view, and I don't know that there's any spotlights active, and I don't seem to be meeting host any. Oh yeah, here I am. Now I can spotlight myself for everyone. Does that work okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So many cameras and gadgets connected up. This little screen over here that shows you the wood turners, that's a. If you see that, are you seeing that as a spotlight?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a little easel here underneath another old iPhone looking straight down at the desktop. So to work the Mid-Atlantic or another symposium or an event, I can put any piece of paper here and there it comes through. So I can put a guy's business card here while talking to him. I can have a screen that shows, like as this is, the name of the event showing here. So I thought that was a pretty good trick. Okay, well that's probably enough of that unless anybody has any questions. I hope I can entice at least some of you to attending virtually next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock to the Lancaster picnic. There is going to be a Frisbee toss right around close on 7. And as I say, I'll send you a link a little later. Today, go ahead.
I'll be there virtually.
Okay, cool. And anybody else who'd like to join us is certainly welcome. I'm back to a gallery view where I can see all of you. I think you're probably seeing me. It's been very interesting experimenting with what Zoom shows in different modes as well. There's lots more here than I ever realized, and I've been working with it for 2 years. Anyway, this is a show and tell morning, and I see that Bill Major has his hand up there, and Kai and Bert and Tony Bouder, and who else would like to join that queue? Use raise hand. If you know where raise hand is, it's on the bottom of the screen over, it says reactions. Click that up, you get a raise hand tab, and it brings you up to the top of the screen. And we also had a question here this morning from Sara Crill, so let's begin with that. Sarah, do you want to put your question to the room?
Yes, I need to purchase something to sharpen my tools and just hoping for some guidance. What do you use?
CBN wheels.
CBN on a 17 or 1800 RPM grinder.
Exactly.
And you can do it on a 3600 grinder, and you can do it with a 6-inch. You just lose more steel more quickly. So 8-inch slow speed and really touch on the tools, because CBNs are phenomenal. They last forever.
What grits would you get, Bert, for 2 wheels?
If you're starting out and you want to, what I've done is get an 80 grit and a 220 grit. And you do if you drop your tool on the floor and you blunt the end, well, you touch it on the 80 grit to get your shape back, and then you hone it with the 220, 180 or 220. And then I always use a credit card hone when I'm at the lathe. So usually I'll sharpen my tools in the morning, and I'll use a little credit card hone for the rest of the day. So you don't use your grinder very much. You very light touch.
Anybody else in on this? I would add the Wolverine-style holder system for getting angles and repeatability. The key thing with a lot of tools, you want to do it. Once you get it right, you want to do it that way every time, and that's what the jigs give you. There's copies of the Wolverine out there. The Wolverine is the one-way version, but there are cheaper alternatives. I think Ernie had a beat on some of them.
Yeah, I did. I have in here for testing is the new Rikon, essentially Chinese copy, no pun intended, of the Wolverine. It is very nicely made, but in some ways it doesn't quite get it. For instance, the little rest that you put down is very fiddly. I don't care for it at all. I'll probably be doing a more full report on that in the future and can elucidate on that. I'd stick with Wolverine for the time being.
Yeah.
So one of you experts, so a two-wheel CBN grinder with the grits you recommend, Bert, and a basic Wolverine system. How many bills are we looking at, U.S. money or Canadian?
On U.S., you could probably get into that for about 300. The CBN wheels will be the most expensive part. You can buy a cheap grinder, but the CBN wheels are more expensive. And if you can only buy one, buy a 180 grit CBN. It'll do everything. Just have one wheel. I started with that for years before I got the second one.
Could I make another comment about the CBN wheels? And that is to get one with a 1-inch land on the side of it, so you've got a flat surface to do your skews.
Yeah.
Instead of the one, because some of them just have like a 1/4 inch on the side of it, but that 1-inch flat so you can do your skews on the side is really good for skew grinding.
I use the CBN wheel for parting tools, but I like the Sorby Pro sharpener for the gougers. It makes wood turning possible for me, and I've tried all sorts of systems. I love that Sorby.
It's a little expensive, though.
Too, and I like it a lot.
I love it, but it's
Sorby.
You're thoroughly confused now,
$400,
Sarah?
Yeah, I was looking at the Sorby as well.
It's a very nice system. It's a very nice system. You'll end up spending about the same money down either path once all said and done, is my opinion. This is not a place to cheap out. This is a place to get it right.
But you're going to use it for the rest of your life in the shop.
I put a link in the chat. I'd say check out Woodturners Wonders. They've really got great prices on CBN wheels. He really brought the market down. And full disclosure, I worked his booth this weekend. Ken Rizza is a great guy to work with, but he's got a sharpening system. I wasn't quite sure at first because it is a little more expensive, but as I got to working with it and it's got some nice features. It's got a rest that makes it real easy for repeatability. It's got a device somewhat similar to the one-ways device that keeps you. It's just a really simple system. It also helps deal with the fiddly part. When you set up the grinder for these systems, they have to be at a certain height. And it's a bit of an effort sometimes to get that to the right height and get the system mounted parallel. And he sells a system that has a base that squares everything up, that just really makes it for an easy setup. But there's a price to be paid for that convenience.
Are you coming with him to show at the Lancaster Symposium?
I think I am.
That would be very cool. So, because what we found, Sarah, at the symposiums is you can beat the shipping. If you contact them first and make your best deal, and then they bring it to the symposium and you pick it up and save a little bit of money anyhow. Yeah, and
he really discounts at the symposiums. Throws in extras. All his symposium prices are a bit cheaper than what he has on his website.
He also has a very good one-horse or the larger grinder. And the difference between the, I don't know, 3/4 and one-horse grinder is the one-horse winds up real fast, so you're not waiting around for it to start. And the slower, the less power one, it takes a little while to get up to speed.
Yeah, he's also got a jet. That's the Rikon. He's also got a jet, 1/2 horsepower, that's got almost the same amperage, and it looks about the size of the 1 horsepower, and it ramps up just as fast, but it's only rated at 1/2 horsepower. But I think it's 6.5 amps. The Rikon 1 horsepower is rated at 7 amps.
The 1/2 horsepower Rikon is very anemic with CBN wheels.
Yeah.
So I believe that system that he's selling that you're talking about, Mike, is the one actually made by TMI and designed by Dave Hout that we had on last week.
I don't think so, but you could be right. But I haven't heard that, and I'm pretty sure it was invented by one of his employees, Joe Schleveen. And it's manufactured in China, but he designed it in-house, I'm pretty sure. I have not seen another one like it anywhere. I'll have to look that up. I'll ask him about it.
Could be just a case that minds are all working on this thing. And
it could be.
Leibniz and Newton, you know.
Yeah.
The one thing about the Wolverine that I love, but I have to keep reminding myself to hold that stud right in the corner, and you want to tend to flip off of it. And I think somebody made one with a little ball in there, like a Wolverine, so you never lose that center point. You guys understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's one of the features of the Kodiak system. It's mounted. It's got a shaft that goes into a bearing and pivots. Yeah.
Lots to decode here. I'm going to move us on now. Good conversation, though. I hope that helps you a little bit, Sarah. Okay. Remove all spotlights, and I'm going to get back to a gallery view, even if you don't see it. Who's next? Oh, Bill. Okay. Anybody else want to join the queue or say anything before we go around and hear from people? Okay. Bill Major, what do you got? Would you like to show us more slides?
Yeah, I'd like to finish my introduction.
Okay. Go for it.
Yep. So I think I prepared everything correctly.
Share screen, we'll see.
Okay, this is the conclusion of my intro that I tried a couple weeks ago. This is my first project on a wood lathe, and it's a central machinery 10x18 lathe that I bought years ago, but I didn't ever get good at it or learn how to use it much. I used it as a tool that I needed. When I used it, it was because I needed it for something. So this is my first project after I joined law and tried to begin getting better at the lathe. A little twig vase that I made. And then this one is a picture of a Corona beer bottle. I made that to give to one of my friends from church. He makes beer, and I thought he would enjoy having that wooden beer bottle. So that's where that went. And this was for me to learn how to use the tools and sharpen the tools in the beginning. And then I moved up to this piece, which began some problems for me. This was a bigger project, and the first thing I realized was I needed a steady rest because I wanted to hollow out the top. So I made this steady rest and began using it to do the top of my vase. There's another view of it right there. So I got it hollowed out, I don't know, 4 to 6 inches deep, sanded it all up and stained it. And now to finish the bottom, I learned that I had to have a jam chuck. So that was something else that I ran into along the way. And this was my jam chuck that I made up to finish this vase. And then finally, I felt like I was ready to start doing things nice. And this is a picture of a Christmas tree ornament, a part of the ornament that I got out of a book from Dale Nish to use. And I want to start making these for relatives for Christmas. So far I've made about 6 of them. This is what they look like when they're done. That's kind of cute, I think. It's made out of maple and bubinga. Bubinga is hard to use because it's so hard, but I have some left over from other projects and I'm going to use it up on the lathe. And then this is another group photo of some of the others that I've made. I bought these stands on Amazon. I think they're a little over $1 a piece. And I'm going to give these to my my recipients of the ornament to display them. They don't have to use a Christmas tree. They can use, this stand. And it was mentioned in Dale's book that you can only have 1.4 ounces of weight on a Christmas ornament. So he does a lot of hollowing on these, but these are all heavier than that weight. So that made another argument to use the stands instead of the Christmas trees. This one on the right weighs 2.4 ounces because of that bubinga. So anyway, that's the extent of the lathe stuff. Anybody have any feedback or anything for me? That would be great.
I love your stands. You say you got them from Amazon?
Yep, got them on Amazon. They were less than $2 a piece.
It's great.
And they fit this project very nicely.
How tall are they?
The ornaments are about 6 to 6.5 inches long altogether. And this metal ring will fit up to maybe 7 inches long.
Do you have any slides there of your billiard table stuff as well?
If you guys want to see it, I do. I have. I'm
kind of curious if we could give it a couple minutes.
Okay. That was my plan for next. So I guess I'll get that started on the.
Oh, if they're not in the same one, we can come back to it another time. But, what are your plans for wood turning? You're going to make Christmas ornaments. Do you want to do bowl turning or architectural turning, or where are you going to go with this?
I'm going to try to use cutoffs from my friends to make bowls. I have some wood that I've been collecting that I want to make some bowls out of, but I don't have a bowl gouge. I have to get one and go from there. So how do I unpause the screen share? I put a billiards picture up there, but I don't know that it connected to you.
It didn't. I can't get at it either. Sometimes I can and sometimes I can't. There you go.
You got that one?
Got a drawing.
Okay. This is the important start of building pool tables. This is just one diagram, an AutoCAD drawing that I did for rails on a certain size table.
How many parts are in a table?
I never really added them up. There's 24, 30, somewhere in there.
Yeah, that sounds right. Okay.
Yeah. So every time you turn around, there's another part. Well, I thought you would find this interesting for another reason. And these drawings are used on the CNC machine also to do the CAM programming, to do as much work as I could on the rails on the CNC machine. And I have a picture of that a little bit later too. This is a cross section of the rail. and what all the dimensions of the different pieces are. The sub rail down here is made out of poplar, and the piece on the top is made out of whatever hardwood the customer chose. I built a lot out of alder and mahogany, and you'll notice it has a little veneer on the top. So sometimes they would want some other color on the top, and I would add a veneer to get that changed over. So anyway, here's a set of rails, and you can see where I had to cut into the sub rail a little bit to get the holes located where they need to be. And these are real mother of pearl diamonds that I cut into each rail with X-Acto knives and chisels and stuff, because when I tried to set up a CNC machine for these, every one of those mother of pearl diamonds is a different thickness and a different size. So it was very difficult to program the computer or the CNC machine to get each size the right size for what I was doing. So I had to go back to the old school and cut them in by hand. And so that's what these have been done. These were cut in by hand. So here is a set of parts that I made for a table that you'll see in completion down in the next picture. This is the sides. This is a 12-inch wide side, and it was made in my shop with a simple 7-inch molder that I had knives made, 3 different knives for this one. And then after they were run through the molder, I glued them together and sanded them. And I had whatever species of wood I wanted made into this profile. And it worked out really to a real advantage. If you look down here, you can see there's a cutout right here on the other side piece. And the reason for that is this customer wanted a built-in pull rack into the table. So the part that I cut out of the previous picture on the rail was used as a drawer front for this drawer, Q rack drawer, that was fit into the bottom of the pool table. So that's just one variation that people liked. And then this is a set of legs and rails in my finish room in the middle of being finished.
Do you ever think about turning legs?
Well, I bought the software to turn my own legs when I bought this CNC machine, and for 2 years I tried to make it work. Their software was new, and every time I turned around I was having problems with the software, and I really didn't have time to spend much time on it. So I hired a company to make these legs for me.
No,
and they made a lot of money on these legs.
Well, with the lathe you have now, you could turn those no problem.
Yeah. Well, I would have to have an indexer and a router set up or something to do, like this is flat-sided, and then there's other moldings that go on these. But you're thinking the same as me. I'd like to do as much as I could on my own here, but I wasn't able to do that. And then this is a picture of the table done. You see the legs on there. Well, actually, it's not done. It's being put together. The big long sides on there, the ends are the match, the diagonal corners. This table was built in my shop, and this picture was to the point where they had laid the slate down on the top to begin mounting the slate and the rails and the apron to complete the installation. So that's what that picture is. And then this is another style of table that was made. And I actually ran these parts on my CNC because it was easier to do that than to lay out all these holes and all that all the time, and cutouts for the various seams that I had to have. You can even see the side of this is dished out a little bit to make room for the pockets in the middle of the leg. So
very nice. That's very cool.
And then this is that table put together. This is the only table I ever made that I ever got to shoot pool on. My sister-in-law shot pool on that table, and she's a state champion billiards player in Delaware. And I took that as a real compliment because she said this was the nicest truest table that she said she ever shot on. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Very cool.
And then now we're getting into the fancy stuff. I only have a few pictures left. This is the ends of a pool table that I'm going to show you a picture of in a minute. This was heavily carved. So I ended up adding a second spindle to my CNC machine so I could cut 2 parts at the same time and that saved me 50% of the time on making these tables. So that was a huge change. And then this is the table finished. Very, very ornate.
Yeah.
And even at that, it still has 100 hours of CNC time on this table, even though I'm making 2 parts at a time, because this carving has to be so minute. You're moving the cutter maybe 1/100th of an inch, and when you step over, otherwise you would be sanding for the rest of your life, and it's difficult to sand these parts that have all this intricacies in them. So
yeah, I don't know if Norbert's on right now, but Norbert would probably tell you how to carve that with hand tools.
Yeah.
He's very good at that.
I don't know how long it would take.
About the same time.
This is my favorite table. I made these too. I made this on my CNC machine, this little medallion there. And the sides, of course, I made on the CNC machine because they're cut in an arch shape. And this was my favorite finish of all the finishes that I did. This is called an oxblood stain with a bunch of lacquer on top. And that was a lot of real nice. This is one other table that's popular. I made this one. A lot of time spent on the CNC on this one as well. And then this is more of the same in the finish room. And that's all the parts set up for a picture. And then this is a shuffleboard table. I made those too. This one's a 22-foot long shuffleboard table that I made in my shop. I had to rearrange machines to make room to do this a little bit. So I pre-cut all the parts before I started putting it together so that I would have everything available and I didn't need to run machines to finish. And then this is another one that I made. And on the side here, I have a better picture, but I didn't put it in here. There's Celtic or Celtic emblems that are carved into the sides of the table. And this customer wanted those as an embellishment to the table. I think that's my last picture. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or get feedback, whatever you guys want to do about that.
Any questions for Bill?
Bill, you need to try an off-axis turning on those legs just to see what happens.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I didn't think about that at the time, but you're right.
Yeah.
And did you make the maple table for the long thing? Did you make that or did you buy that somewhere?
I bought that from a guy out in Michigan. The problem is handling it. It's 20 feet long and it's one piece.
Yeah.
So I can't work on a 20-foot long piece of material in my shop. This guy, for a fee, and it was a significant fee, he would make up the top and then he would drop ship it to the customer's location so that I didn't even have to haul it there. So I took the shuffleboard, the last one I helped put in, I took all the parts in the back of my pickup truck and took it to the site and I put it all together there. And then the people that had delivered those top helped the homeowner put the top in the building near where the shuffleboard was going to be. So we just had a couple guys come over and we lifted it onto the table when it was ready. So the least amount of handling as possible, because I think it weighed about, I don't know, 400 pounds or something.
Well, you can also turn cues and pool balls too. I mean, a lot of old style turners, there's a lot of stuff in the old books about turning ivory pool balls and truing them up periodically. Yeah. Very interesting stuff. You can learn to do it. It's fun. These spheres are fun. Any other questions for Bill? I'm going to move us along. We got a lot of people hands up today.
Bill, quick question. Are those maple strips the whole length or are they pieced and parted all the way?
They're pieced.
It has to
okay.
be.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. Nice intro. Next time I got
Thank
a
you.
pool table question, you're the guy I'm going to come to too.
Okay.
Kai, before I go to these guys who've been here around, Toby Bouder's over here with his hand up. We haven't seen anything from Toby before. Toby, have you got something you want to show us? You're new to this group.
Yeah, I have a couple of my things I've made over the last few years, if you'd like to see them. There's one in the background there, but I can share screen.
Yep, go for it.
Okay.
I have a spotlight on you. Toby's a member of Susquehanna up in Harrisburg.
There we go.
Got it going? There you go.
Okay, this is a piece of box elder. It's 5 inches by 6 inches. And I do a lot of die pieces, so that's mainly what I'm going to show, just because it's a little bit different than most others. That's linden, actually.
Huh.
It's dyed also. I think I used, I went over first with blue and then with red, I believe.
So do you find that the does the dye bring up the grain and the figure in woods that otherwise are kind of bland and calm, like pear?
Absolutely. Like this linden here, it was just a plain sort of wood-looking color. But by putting the dye on, and for some reason, the different colors soak in different areas of the wood independently of each other, so it comes out like this. I don't know how it works, but I like the effect. This is maple, 7 inches by 3 inches. On this one, I put a little bit of yellow in the feather area and then put blue over the whole thing. So it came out kind of yellowish greenish.
Well, how do you feather in that yellow so it doesn't have hard edges? What do you do?
I use the very tip of the brush and just kind of streak it across. And then once you put the second coat on, it blends in the hard edges. I use water as a dilute for the dye. I use Drenstein dye.
So you're kind of making you're doing watercoloring on there, really?
Sort of, a little bit, yeah. When you first put it on, the brush strokes look really harsh, but when you wash over it with another coat, it just kind of blends it across, so it looks more natural. And this one is maple, also with some spalting on it, and I dyed it blue. That's 5 by 4 inches. Another piece of maple from the same tree. This tree had a lot of figure in it. The whatever you call it.
Spalting?
No, the crosswise figure there. I can't think of the word.
Voyance or something like that.
Anyhow, I took the blanks and put them in a plastic bag and sat them in the corner of my shop for up to about 8 weeks. So each week I would check to see how the spalting was going on the piece. And when it got to a point where I liked it, then I put it on the lathe and turned it.
Poof, nice. How tall is that?
This one is 7 inches by 4.5.
Thank you.
Backwards. Here we go. This is a piece of maple burl, just a vase shape. And like you say, when you put the dye on, it really makes the figure stand out.
And are you putting on that dye, like, is it quite dilute or is it concentrated? I mean, what's the...
I use, for a piece like this, I use maybe 4 tablespoons of water and maybe 5 drops of Drenstein blue dye. That's all you need.
Okay, so it's very, in other words.
What's that?
Very dilute, in other words.
Yes, and I like to do 2 coats, because when you put the first coat on, sometimes when you initially put the brush down, it gets a little darker than when you spread it out. So when you put 2 coats on, that kind of evens out that blotchiness. So I put 2 thin coats on to cover the whole piece. And I let it dry in between. There's another piece of maple, just showing the figure. On this one, the heartwood over here on the left-hand side, I went over with red and then put blue over the whole thing, just to kind of highlight the heartwood. Look backwards. Another piece of maple, 7 by 6. I just did in green, Well, I probably did yellow and then blue over top of it. That's normally the way I do it. Rather than mix the green all together in one container, I do 2 separate applications to come out. It's just, to me, it adds more variation in the color.
Is that a lid? Is that a box with a lid?
Yes, it's a lid on top.
Toby, is that yellow dye dry before you put the blue on?
Yes, I let them dry in between coats.
Toby, does that lid sit on a rim or is it just sit on the slope of the bowl?
No, there's a little ledge inside that it sits on. I have other pictures that shows that, but I just wanted to, for this application, for you guys, I just wanted to show what the piece was.
That's spectacular coloring in there.
This is one of my favorites here. This is maple also. It's 8 inches across, 4 inches high. This one I also did the bottom in red first and then blue over the whole thing.
Now that's a heartwood sapwood combination?
Correct. And the rim up there, I just left natural color.
That's nice.
Beautiful.
First thing I seen or thought of when I seen that one was the Northern Lights. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It looks like the Northern Lights.
Yeah, I agree.
Spectacular.
Toby, how do you keep the dye from getting on that natural edge?
I just start from the bottom and come up with the brush and just go off the edge rather than trying to go across the rim. Just come from the bottom and straight up. These are 2
You say brush. What kind of a brush are you using?
I use a little, there's acid brush that you get at Harbor Freight.
Yep.
About 3/8 inch wide. That's all. That's what I use.
Do you turn them or do you use them straight out of the box?
Straight out of the box. And I use the same brushes. I've been using them for years. So 5 different brushes maybe. I now use water, just rinse them out.
So what do you mix the dyes in? What's your container of choice?
I usually use there's Tide detergent, the cap that goes on there. I just use that as put some water in and put the dye in, stir it up with the brush.
And then wash it out.
Yes.
So you have running water in your shop?
Well, I do it in-house actually.
Okay.
Yeah, everything, all the dyeing's done off the lathe. Wrong way. Oop. These are 2 eggs that I made. These are box elder, 5 inches by 2.5. In the box elder, the red that's in the box elder, I put the red dye over top of it so it stays red, doesn't fade to brown. This is a cord piece. This is 1 burl, and I dyed each piece different color, and the one in the center is natural, and this one is. I didn't put the size on. The biggest piece there is about 15 inches, I think.
Did you say what brand the dyes are? I have questions.
Trans-tint.
Trans-tint.
Yeah. Where
do you get them?
I bought it online, but I believe Woodcraft does carry it. And they come in little 2-ounce bottles, and they last. I've had it for 10 years now, and I'm still in the same bottles because I only use a couple drops. I've made hundreds of pieces with them. Backwards again. There's another maple with the red and the blue. This one is box elder.
Toby, what do you do with these pieces?
I sell them. I sell everything.
Where do you sell them?
There's about 20 different local shops here in central Pennsylvania that I have things in, and I sell a good bit right off of Facebook from my followers. And then I do a couple shows also.
For trans tint dyes, are they food safe?
Well, I coat them with the actually use triple thick clear coat from Krylon. So I coat the dye anyhow, so it's not going to come in contact with anything. So I don't believe it is food safe if you don't put a top coat on.
So the top coat you're using is Krylon from a rattle can?
Yes, exactly.
And how many coats of that do you put, how many coats of that do you put on?
It depends on the wood and how it soaks in, but usually 3 or 4. And then I buff it up afterwards after that.
With what, the BL system, 3 wheels?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I only use 2 wheels though. I don't use the wax.
You just go from rouge to white diamond.
Correct. This is a cherry burl. Yellow and blue I used on this one to dye. This is a maple piece. I went in, the heartwood's down the bottom there. I went over that with red. And then I must have mixed up green. I'm not sure how I got the color on this. I forget. I don't think I went over the red. I think I kind of blurred the around here. Can you see my arrow going?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Do you photograph everything on the way out the door?
I usually store up and I get about 5 or 6 pieces, and then I on top of my chest freezer in the basement is where I take the photos. I put a gradient background up and use just one light. As you can see the dark shadow down here, I just use one light.
Well, the shadow anchors the piece in 3D space. It's important, I think.
Yeah, I do too. And sometimes if the shadow is real harsh, I have a reflector on the one side to lighten up just the shadow. But often I just leave the shadow as is.
And what are you shooting with? Your phone or a SLR?
No, I have a Canon. It's sitting here. I don't know what kind it is. It's a Canon, you know.
Like a regular
DSL.
Yeah.
We want that one. Here's another one, cherry burl. This one amazed me. All I used on this was blue dye, and it just showed up differently in different areas of the wood because of the spalted area. The sapwood on the top was kind of spalted, and you know, the fungus was in there.
Wow, beautiful piece.
This one is 4.5 inches across.
Where do you get most of your wood?
Right around the house in the neighborhood, and sometimes I'll drive by, and if somebody, you know, they cut a tree down, or the farmers in the area, I'll stop and ask them. They're in between their fence rows. There's a lot of cherry burl in my area, so you know, have this available. So I just stop and ask. Oh yeah, you can have that. This was another piece of that same cherry burl with the sapwood that had some spalting on it. This one has a lid that sits on the rim on the inside. I just painted the lid black. I forget what kind of wood it was, probably cherry or maple. Another piece of that same cherry burl. And just with one color, just putting the blue on there, it came out with all this variation of color. This one is box elder. And then again, I went over this red with red dye first, and then blue over top of it. This is a piece of maple, just in between the limbs on a figure. Another piece of maple, and this has a lid on it, and then this walnut for the knob and the space in there.
Toby, how many pieces a year do you make?
These bigger pieces like this, I probably make 50 to 75. And then I do a lot of small pieces, you know, knick-knack type things, mushrooms and Christmas trees and weed pots. They sell pretty good. But I probably do 100 or 200 of those a year.
A lot of production.
This one is, well, I'm retired. What else do I do? This one is poplar. I like the way, this one's, again, just blue dye over top of it. This is 11.5 by 2 inches.
So if you're retired, what did you do before you retired?
I worked at the post office for 37 years or something like that. And I sorted mail, so I did the same thing over and over again every night. So now I, you know, and I did what I was told, working for somebody, well, the government. Now I do what I like to do and when I want to do it.
Fabulous.
This is maple. I dyed orange. There's another piece of maple showing the figure. This one I did two tones, red on the inside and this blue on the outside. Piece of ox elder that the only dye part I did on here was the red. And as before, when I told you I did the red and it looked harsh when you first put it on because the brush strokes. On this one, because I didn't put another color over top of it, I just washed over it with plain water and it had the same effect. It just muted out the harsh strokes. So it looks more natural, like it blends in the area.
Did you use the same brush for that?
You mean from the red to the water? No, I used a new brush. So it didn't have any hint of any other color.
But it's one of those acid brushes.
Yeah, the same acid type of brush. Right?
Whoa.
all this dark stuff is the spalting rotted stuff. Again, I had this in a plastic bag for a while. I think that's all I have.
Hey, Toby, that's a fabulous slideshow. I'm going to kill the slides so we can talk to you.
Okay.
Yeah, questions for Toby?
I guess not.
Well, I think it was a terrific slideshow.
I'd like to know what the exact number of the blue dye that you use is.
I don't have it here with me, but it's just transient blue. And I think bright. I think I just call it blue. I use three colors. I use the red, the yellow, and the blue, and then all the other colors you just the primary colors. So I just mix from there. And like I say, I've been using those same 2-ounce containers for the last probably 8 years that I've been dyeing things.
It's remarkable work, Toby. It's really beautiful stuff.
Oh, thank you.
So where did you get the idea to start dyeing the wood?
Well, from watching videos, and I forget who exactly it was, but one guy started dyeing, so I bought some of this dye. I don't know exactly what pushed me to that brand, but I got it. And the first time I dyed something, it was a big, like 14-inch box elder burl bowl with a natural edge, kind of like the other pieces you saw there. And this is the first piece that I dyed. And I put blue dye on it. And I thought, oh, that looks really neat. And then when it dried, it got all pastel looking. And I thought, oh man, I ruined this piece. So I put some more dye on it, thinking, oh yeah, I fixed it. And it dried again, it got all pastel. I thought, oh. So I put one more coat on. So I had 3 coats on this thing. And then I thought, oh, well, I'm just going to finish it anyway. And once I put the finish on, it reverts right back to the way it looks when it's wet. Has the nice gloss and shine to it. So that's that was my first piece.
Do you sand them after you dye them?
No. I prep everything first, get it as if you were just going to, hand it to somebody unfinished. And then I put the dye on. And then sometimes I'll go over it with one of those 3M scrunch pads or whatever they're called. And to take down the raised grain a little bit, and then I'll put my finish on it.
Yeah, I would think you get a lot of raised grain with wet dyes.
Wow, beautiful stuff. Oh, thank you very much for this, Toby. I'm going to go. We have a few minutes left, and we have a lot of the people with their hands up. So, in the interest of hearing from more, I'm going to go to Kai next. Are you on, Kai?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I've got some impressions from a wood turning symposium we had in Germany 2 weeks ago. So if you are interested, I could show them.
Please do.
Yeah, shall I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I share that then. Okay, just to get it right. So you should see the PowerPoint now.
We do?
Yeah. So the symposium was held in Hessenpark. Hessen is the area of Germany we live in. And there are symposiums in Germany every 2 years. Because of COVID, the other one was 3 years ago. So that was the first kind of getting together in Germany after COVID, or well, it's not really after COVID, but when COVID was less dangerous. And yeah, I don't know about other European countries where they have symposiums. There's one in Britain I know about. There is a smaller one in France, and the German symposium normally gets people from Germany, Switzerland, Austria, maybe the Netherlands, some people from France, some people from Hungary were there, the Czech Republic, so Germany and countries around it. The location, Hessenpark, is about 15 miles north of Frankfurt am Main, where the big airport is. And I show you some pictures of the park first. The park actually is a collection of historic buildings from different parts of Hessen, or Hessia, as they call it in English. And they are grouped according to 4 different regions of Hessen. Yeah, so like 4 different small villages. And when the buildings arrive at this place, they are normally, they were taken down somewhere else. The beams and stones and windows and stuff is stored. And when they have money, they set them up again. So there's a wagon maker's workshop. We also call that a wheelwright.
Wheelwright, yes.
Yeah, okay. And sometimes they demonstrate in there, but not very often.
Wainwright. The other word is wainwright. A wainwright would make wagons. A wheelwright would make wheels. Okay,
so it's a Wainwright and both.
Yeah.
They seem to show both there, and they have a lathe, historic lathe there as well. The interesting thing is the spindle can be moved for drilling. So yeah. Okay, and there is a woodturners workshop as well, which is of more interest to me because I belong to a group of woodturners that demonstrate in this workshop. So we do that for free as kind of voluntary work. People wander in there, we show them how woodturning works, explain about it, and we also can sell a little bit of our stuff there. So that's the deal. We can sell something and then we do the demonstration for the public. Here you can see in the background the 2 lathes we use. So normally we work with 2 people, and then one is demonstrating, the other one is preparing things, and seldom we both work at the same time. There's a treadle lathe in the room next door where they also make wooden clocks, shoes, or where the machinery is there to make wooden clocks. It's not working, but you can see the machinery. Yeah, we can sell our stuff. And now about the symposium. We had about 1,700 paying visitors, which is mostly turners, sometimes maybe spouses as well who went there. Normally, the thresh barn looks like this with the old farm machinery. They cleaned it out for the symposium, and woodturning clubs could put up their stalls, demonstrate woodturning, again, talk to the audience who normally comes to this park, Hessenpark, and also sell some stuff there. So that's a photo I took for Jim because he likes kind of old wood with splits in it, cracks in it. So I thought that might be interesting for you. And
thanks, Kai.
Another one for Gary. He showed us work using this kind of paint at some time. I seem to remember.
Thank you,
Gary Snelson. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Toby as well.
Yeah. And they had in different buildings, they had dealers as well showing their equipment, lathe. And this was quite interesting, I thought. For hollowing out, this guy had connected his hollowing tool to a bar that was fixed to another bar that is fixed to the lathe and to the floor. So this takes kind of the downward force away from the tip of the tool, so it isn't pulled down. So if you center the tool, you can still move it left to right and turn it as well, turn it around as well. But the tip isn't pulled down, or you don't have to hold it in a way that it stays in the right plane. And he said at home he normally has fixed it to the ceiling of his workshop, but because when he demonstrates, normally you cannot fix things to the ceiling of the room. He has this bar here, he fixed it to. So that I thought that was quite an interesting idea. Yeah, then there were demonstrations, as with other symposiums as well. The star guest was a turner from Japan called Aiko Tanaka. I don't know whether she is popular in Britain, in the US, or known in the US. She demonstrated the traditional way of Japanese turning, and that is done on a lathe where she's sitting at the lathe, and the tool rest actually can be moved on this kind of table here. So it's not kind of screwed to it or in a fixed position. You can move it around. Very different way from the kind of turning that I'm used to. And here's something for John. She held all her stuff on a faceplate with nails. So kind of a faceplate with nails sticking out of it. Her plank went onto it. Then she turned the outside of the bowl and the foot, and then she put another plank onto these nails, hollowed it out to make a cup chuck, and then she put the kind of bowl that had already been turned on the outside into the cup chuck. So here you can see this is the bowl she was doing inside the cup chuck, and here you can see still the nails where the bowl was held to do the outside. So and the kind of tools she used was were hook tools mainly, like this one. And after she used the hook tools, she used a scraper held kind of freehand. Very interesting technique. This is the work she does. She does the turning, and she does Japanese style of surface treatment called urushi. I hope I pronounce it in the right way. And you get these kind of translucent surfaces where the layers are built up, or layer after layer is built up, and it brings out the grain of the wood really nicely. So these are pieces she made on this kind of, for me, simple lathe, or with these simple techniques. And here is another thing for John, maybe. The video and audio setup in the room where they did the demonstrations. They had hired professionals to do this. So they had 4 big video screens or TV screens, and that was the equipment they used for filming. They recorded everything. They had different cameras that they could control remotely. So they had a kind of a joystick to move the cameras around. Lots and lots of technology, must be really expensive, but it gave nice views for the audience. And and there was a competition as well. These are 2 objects that got prizes. Here, a hollow form with a hole that is not in the center, but out of the center. So that got a prize for the turning technique that was used there. And also the public liked it at best. So that was a second prize, no, first prize from the public, a second prize for the technique. And then for another prize, the first prize for a wood turning technique was this piece with a lot of inlay work being done and fine turning here and stuff like this. To me, it looks a bit kind of traditional, the way the prizes went for more kind of interesting objects. I thought they didn't win any prizes in Germany. So maybe we are more on the traditional side with our taste for wood turning. Okay, yeah, that's it. I stop that again. Are you muted, John?
I believe the finish on those Japanese pieces was what's called a rushi lacquer.
Yeah, urushi. Yeah. Maybe I pronounced it the wrong way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's made from the same plant that's poison ivy, and some people can use it fine, and other people will break all out in like they.
Yeah, it's horrendous stuff. Yeah. Kai, were there a lot of demonstrations live like we do in our American symposiums?
Yeah, there were other demonstrations as well. They had demonstrators at the stalls of the dealers who demonstrated there, and you could talk to them, showing different techniques and stuff like that. And then there were demonstrations just in this one barn that you saw. There were demonstrations on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. People taking turns demonstrating there for an hour or an hour and a half. So I think that's similar to the kind of symposiums you have in the States.
Yeah. What was there any video presence or a Zoom presence on concurrent live online presence, or was it only being filmed to be shown afterward?
There was no Zoom, and I don't know exactly about the filming. They did the filming, but whether they release these films in some way, I don't know. So maybe they don't. So, and I didn't film anything, so I cannot show what was going on. Maybe I should do that next time to show how things worked. Yeah.
And what language are most of the? Is everything in German?
Mostly German and English. So they had some turners from Britain as well, and they normally talked English. And if necessary, someone translated. As with this woman from Japan, Aiko, she had a translator who translated from Japanese into German because she didn't speak any English and German. But she had visited Germany before with the same translator, and they know what they were doing, so it worked quite well.
Is there an instant gallery as well? That where those prizes were awarded must have been from an instant gallery?
Yeah. This time it was really small, just about 50 pieces they showed in the instant gallery. And it was the same room where the prizes, I took the photos of the prizes, and there were more prizes. I just took two because I didn't want to make that too long. It was a bit of a pity because it was one of the exhibition rooms of the museum with old machinery and stuff like that in there. They should have put up some better background, so to separate the pieces from the other exhibits in the room, which they didn't do.
Was there any kind of a luncheon or a banquet or an auction or any of those other kinds of social events?
Yeah, there was a barbecue on Friday night, and kind of a buffet on Saturday night, and nothing on Sunday, nothing special on Sunday. You could still buy food and talk to people. Well, that's what I did most of the time. I walked around there. I didn't see that many demonstrations. I mostly talked to people I hadn't seen for 2 years or 2.5 years, and we do the Zoom thing in Germany as well. So I met a lot of people who I had only seen on Zoom previously. So it was more kind of socializing, talking to people, and spending some money, I have to admit, at the dealers as well. But yeah.
Thank you very much, Kai. That's a wonderful report.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Kai, you said no Zoom. Does that mean no virtual presentation at all?
Yes. I talked to them before the event whether they wanted to do something like that, and they said, well, it would be a bit of a problem with the demonstrators. They didn't want their stuff being filmed and put onto the internet, so they didn't like the idea of having Zoom at the demonstrations. Same thing maybe as in the States as well. We talked about that earlier on with John.
Yeah, Mid-Atlantic doesn't want to do any of the demos, and I think that's fine. If you want to do demos, show up, or else watch the videos that they're probably going to post in a week or two. But if you want to participate in the symposium and say hi to people and look at the work and see the trade show, we can do that on Zoom, and we're going to give it a try.
Will you? I think you will record that in some way. What you're doing live there.
Of course I will, and I'll have my wife take videos on her phone as well. So we'll have a full presentation to stitch together at the end of it all.
So we will see you talking to people filmed by your wife.
We will see we'll see how it works. I don't know. It's a big experiment.
That might be interesting. That might be interesting to see how it works, and then maybe I can show it to our clubs in Germany and say, look, that's what they do in the States. Why don't we do that?
It isn't what they do in the States either. It's like,
what John does in the States. Okay.
we're experimenting here, and it looks like we're kind of out on the cutting edge, which much surprises me, in that AAW doesn't seem to have any policy or program to support clubs that are wrestling with this. We're kind of all on our own, which is why we started the Hybrid Meeting Forum, to kind of try and take care of ourselves. So anyway, on that note, we have come way over time on this coffee hour, 10 minutes over, a horror of horrors. We usually don't do that. I want to thank you all for joining us again this morning. I'm sorry to those of you who've been raising hands and not getting shown. I think next week I'm going to go to the guys who are regulars and have been raising hands, and I've been passing you by to show new people. So next week we'll show you old guys. And then on the 21st of July, 25th, we're having Al Sturt as our guest star. That'll be our third Thursday in July meeting.
I believe it's the 21st, John.
I think it's the 21st as well. So that's the July guest star. And if you have any other guest stars you'd like us to invite, let me or Ernie know. So far, everyone we've asked has said, sure, I'd like to do that. So we seem to have access to all of the reigning stars of the woodturning world. So if there's somebody you'd like to get to know better, see their shop, see their work, have a slideshow, let me know. We'll ask them. And thank you all. See you all next week.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Kai. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, John. Great job.
See you all next week.
Always fun.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Thanks, John. See ya.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.